Welcome to Museum Moments, the show that tells you about the exhibits, art and artifacts, programs, and special events offered by all of the museums here in Museum City, Portsmouth. I'm your host, Rob Lauer. There's a lot happening museum-wise this July and August. Stay tuned for a preview coming up right now. Welcome to this July-August 2015 episode of Museum Moments. This year, July 4th falls on a Saturday, which means the holiday coincides with the first weekend events offered for free every month at the Portsmouth Art and Cultural Center and the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard Museum. The Independence Day festivities kick off on Friday evening, July 3rd, with a free concert in the courtyard of the Portsmouth Art and Cultural Center located on the corner of High Street and Court Street in Old Town. There'll be a free music, also free refreshments and drinks, and free admission to the center's current exhibits. On Saturday, July 4th, celebrate Independence Day with Frank Lloyd Wright, the man voted by the American Institute of Architects as the greatest American architect of all times. Before the evening fireworks, come to the Portsmouth Art and Cultural Center to hear about the fireworks within Wright's 70-year career. Using over 300 images, guest presenter Timothy Totem will take the audience on a journey of architectural analysis, love, adultery, murder, detailing the tumultuous life and the groundbreaking work of Frank Lloyd Wright. Timothy Totem has studied Frank Lloyd Wright for nearly 25 years, visiting nearly 100 Wright-designed buildings across the United States. This event, The Wright Way, The Life and Times of Frank Lloyd Wright, is sponsored by the Thompson Family Foundation, and it's free along with all the exhibits at the Portsmouth Art and Cultural Center on Saturday, July 4th, beginning at 1:30 p.m. On that same day, if you walk down High Street to the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard Museum, you'll find more Independence Day events that are also absolutely free, as is admission to the museum itself and the Lightship Portsmouth. Recently, we spoke to museum curator Diane Cripps to learn more about these events, as well as other recent developments at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard Museum. I'm joined by Diane Cripps, who is the curator of the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard Museum. Thanks for joining us, Diane.
My pleasure.
Now, there are a lot of things happening this summer here at the museum, starting with Patriots Day in July.
Right.
Okay, now that happens to fall on July 4th this year, right?
Right, and that's also Portsmouth's first weekend, and whenever that happens, we have a first Saturday event where admission to the museum and the Lightship Portsmouth is free. And it's also the day that we have our Patriots Day event, and we're going to have a lot of things going on.
Now, usually you've had things like colonial games, people in colonial outfits, but you're changing it up a little bit this year, aren't you?
We're trying a new theme. We're going with World War II, patriotism on the home front in Portsmouth.
So what types of things do you have going on that day?
Well, we're going to have a wonderful swing band called the 504 Supreme Band. They're going to be coming and playing swing music all afternoon, and we have a dance group coming called Swing Virginia that's going to be dancing and demonstrating and even giving lessons if you're so inclined. And we have a wonderful reenactor named Jim Collier who comes and he plays the role of a World War II Navy recruiter, and he'll sit you down at his desk with his manual typewriter and sign you up for the Navy and send you off for basic training. And he brings a Jeep, he brings a tent full of artifacts, and it's going to be a really great display, I think.
Lightship Portsmouth is also open that day for free?
Yep, absolutely.
So why the change? How did this come about, moving from colonial to World War II?
Well, we like to focus on all eras of history if we can, and we had a number of activities that we'd done in the past about World War II that had been well received, and we had some connections with people like Jim Collier or the band, and we thought maybe we could put together a whole day about it and focus on an era that was really important to Portsmouth and the development of the shipyard.
Now, the Shipyard Museum has undergone some changes recently. You've come on as curator. I understand you have a new associate curator, assistant curator?
Assistant curator.
And who is that?
Her name is Emily Kilgore, and we're so pleased to have her with us. And she was actually promoted from within the museum's department, and so she's got a running start on
And she's been an educator, I know, for several years.
She has, but her particular interest is history, so we're glad to have her on board.
Right. And I understand there's going to be some changes to the building, which has been in use since what year?
It's been the museum since 1963.
Okay.
But what people may not realize when they come visit us is that they're entering a fairly historic building itself because it's been around since 1919. It was the maintenance building for the car ferry that used to run right outside the door here. There's no evidence of that now. You know, just the little passenger ferry runs.
Yeah.
But it was a relatively industrial style building with big factory style windows way back in those days. And in 1962-63, it was renovated to be the building you see now to house the gallery and the exhibits, and the entire museum moved from the shipyard to this building at that point.
And after 53 years, it's going to have some more renovations, which are not cosmetic, I understand, but are pretty important. What are those?
Right. Well, anyone who lives in an old building can tell you that it's always asking for something, and the building has finally asked us enough times, so we have to take care of it. We are going to be renovating the entire ceiling of the gallery, which is made up of lots of different kinds of materials. It carries part of our HVAC system. That's all going to have to be reconfigured. We're going to be doing some asbestos abatement, and when that's all through, we're going to put in a museum-grade LED track lighting system. And the great thing about LED lights for museums is that they don't put out any ultraviolet light, which is what makes artifacts
and most of us
fade.
studies off, so you have no idea that the lighting can affect the artifacts.
It's a pretty important upgrade. Light is one of the biggest enemies of antiques, especially fabrics, especially paper artifacts, and we have a lot of those on display. So that's going to be a really important upgrade for the museum.
Okay, so the museum will close down for a number of months?
It will, and we're doing some other things too. We're renovating our circa 1962 restrooms. We're adding an accessible restroom. We're reconfiguring our museum shop counter and ticket sales office, and so we're hoping that when we're done, the museum will be a lot more accommodating for the artifacts and the visitors both.
Now, if you haven't been to the Naval Shipyard Museum, really check it out. It's not the biggest museum in Portsmouth, but I think it's one of the most important.
It's a hidden gem.
Really, it really is. I mean, veterans from all over the country, when they're in this area, they come and they stop in here to see the artifacts, things dating from 1812, Civil War, World War I, World War II. If you're a history buff, be sure to come to the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard Museum. You won't want to miss it. With displays and exhibits on Portsmouth naval history dating back to the colonial period, the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard Museum is the perfect place to visit on Independence Day, or at any time of the year. What most visitors don't know, however, is that the museum has a huge archive of rare historical artifacts in storage. Some of these artifacts have been on display in the past, some are put on display for special occasions, and some have yet to be put on display. I'm here at the Naval Shipyard Museum in the second floor in the Marshall Budd Library. I'm joined by Emily Kilgore, who is the new assistant curator of the Shipyard Museum.
Yes.
Congratulations on the job.
Thank you.
Now, Emily's here because we are starting a new segment on Museum Moments called Hands-on History. If you've been to the Shipyard Museum, you know what's on display downstairs, but what you probably don't know is that there is a huge collection upstairs of artifacts that have never made it to the floor or have been out there and been put back into storage. And so Emily is going to each episode bring out some things out of the storage and show us some artifacts that are here at the museum. So welcome, and what's the first artifact that you have for us?
My artifact here, I went looking for an artifact that I believe has a story. So I chose the uniform and some of the different parts of Mr. Rufus Parks, who was the paymaster at the Norfolk Navy Yard in 1861 when the Civil War started. And when the Gosport shipyard actually was burned by the Confederates and turned over to the Union, that Mr. Parks came down and worked as the new paymaster, worked his way all the way up to a pay director, and retired as a rear admiral in 1899. So it's really cool old stuff.
I mean, this looks in great shape. This looks like, I thought this was maybe a costume or reproduction from maybe the 1950s or 60s. This is the real.
It is the real deal. It is 150 years old. We think it's in such good condition because we have discovered that it was it was actually one of the original kind of things that they would wear when they had to do something nice, like if an admiral or a commander, exactly, a ceremonial type of thing. So we don't think that Mr. Parks actually wore this very often, especially since he was only a paymaster in the beginning to wear this uniform for only about 5 years. So he didn't have it for very long before he would move up to admiral status and start wearing a different uniform that was a little darker and not as ornamental.
So is this a standard issue uniform for this position within the federal?
We aren't entirely certain because things would change over over time and everything like that. We do think it was made specifically for him to wear, and we know this because of the ornamental area. All of this is my favorite part. All of this is actually a metal thread, and it's all been hand sewn on all the way down. You can see it is also there on the sleeves as well as the pockets. My favorite thing is also the lace that is on the cuffs of his sleeves, and that tells us that it was a ceremonial type attire.
You don't see too much lace on military uniforms.
You don't see a whole lot of lace on military uniforms. So no, all the buttons are standard Navy regulation. The color of the coat is what we call standard Navy regulation. But we do know that this was an ornamental type thing that he probably didn't wear very often. Okay. But that's why it's in such good shape. It doesn't have very many holes at all.
Now, where was he from originally?
He actually was from Maine, and he joined the Navy as a paymaster in 1861 and was transferred down. He was on a ship station for a little while named the Valhalla, stationed in New Jersey for a little while, and eventually made his way down to the shipyard towards the end of 1861 into 1862. So he is... you know, not from the area. He was considered a northerner, but when, like I said, Gosport was taken over by the Union, he was part of the original Union and one of the first paymasters that we have on record at the Gosport shipyard.
Wow. So now, is this his hat?
This is actually his hat from when he was an admiral, as opposed to just a paymaster. And we know that it's a paymaster hat because it has the same type of leaf ornamentation that was on here. The leaves always meant that it was the paymaster rank. A lot of times on their official uniform, they would have the actual leaves hanging out on the sleeves itself. So this is, you know, a little later in his career, but we have record and documentation saying that it was Mr. Parks, and it's just a random part of our collection.
Now, is the hat made out of fur?
It is. It looks like a bear, doesn't it?
It does.
It
really
looks a little bit like a bear. It is a type of fur. I'm not entirely certain what kind, but you know, they had a lot of cardboard, and the stitching that is right here is also made out of metal thread. Wow. So I just, you know, I love pieces like this because it's just not something that I get to see very often.
Now, what is this piece here?
That is, I like to call it the Napoleon box. It is the hat box that actually would have held this hat. And this is another wonderful piece of our collection because Mr. Parks actually has two of these boxes, and they're both made out of metal. And you don't see metal hat boxes anymore.
No.
So it was very specific. In this particular instance, a lot of times they would have their names engraved on it. Mr. Parks probably didn't go through that process to try to keep it in there. He wasn't an admiral for very long, so it doesn't have any ornamentation on it, but I just love the fact that we have the original box that the hat came in.
Wow.
So,
and is this his sword?
It's a sword, yeah. I am a huge fan of swords. We have a lot of them in our collection that are sitting back there. Some of them are actually on loan to us from the Navy, but a lot of them are actually ours, collected from, you know, different people that have donated things over the years and parts of the original collection. Can I stand?
Sure.
Okay, so the sword is one of my favorite parts because it has so many different aspects to it. We've got the metal thread right there at the top of the hilt. If I flip it around so you can see the hilt this way, we have the leaves as well as the US Navy inscription. The handle itself, let me just move that tag, has the dragon on it, and the dragon kind of goes all the way around. It was a sea serpent. The ropes there recognize that he was an admiral as he retired. But my favorite part is when you open up the sword, and we've got these inscriptions all along here, and they are the leaves, the different parts. Sometimes they were the maker's number, and we have all the way down to the end where we've got a sea serpent hanging out at the end. Now, the sword was not very sharp because it was used for ceremonial purposes only, but it still has just a really cool history behind it.
Wow, very interesting.
It's pretty cool.
But this is cool. Again, I'm just amazed at how well it's preserved.
It is. It's absolutely wonderful. Uniforms, they require a lot of taking care of. We have special textile boxes for them. We have to get a special type of acid-free tissue paper to get them to work. If the person has given it to us in a good shape, we can, you know, just box it up and everything. If it requires a lot of assistance, we usually have to send it off to a conservator who takes care of moth holes. Moths are our huge enemy in a collection. So we have some moth holes on him, but he's just... Mr. Parks is very well preserved, so we're very happy about all of that.
Well, thanks for taking the time to show this to us, and we look forward to coming back next episode and seeing what else you have to join us.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank you.
When we return to Museum Moments, we'll look at upcoming events at the Jewish Museum and Cultural Center, the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame, and the Children's Museum of Virginia. Stay tuned.
Being a dad can be tough.
No. What do you mean she's not coming?
When's the fairy princess coming?
Any minute now.
But when you're willing to do anything...
It is I, Cruz Zinkelbell. Okay, time for cake.
It's always worth it.
I know it's really you, Drew. I'm just pretending for the other kids.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
At our house, we really like to maximize family time. That's why our favorite place for family fun is Old Town Portsmouth. We love taking the ferry over, then strolling through unique shops filled with one-of-a-kind treasures. Next, it's on to a great lunch at an outdoor cafe and an afternoon of fun with friends at the Children's Museum of Virginia and the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame and Museum. Food, fun, and adventure? No wonder Old Town Portsmouth is our go-to destination for family fun.
Doesn't see race. Love is love.
Welcome back to this July-August 2015 episode of Museum Moments. The Virginia Sports Hall of Fame is one of Old Town's most famous landmarks. Located at 206 High Street, the Hall of Fame features 9 exhibit areas filled with displays and interactive exhibits devoted to 20 different sports. But what you may not know is the Hall of Fame also sponsors sports-related educational activities and programs that take place throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. I drove by Elena Traffy, who's one of the educators here at the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Now, I understand we've had a really busy year this year with education.
Yes, we sure did. Broke lots of records here. So we have our education department. We saw about 20,000 children this year.
Wow.
So through our outreach programs and our in-house field trips, a little bit over 20,000 children experienced one of our education programs. So we're super excited about that.
Now, was all that happening right here at the Sports Hall of Fame, or do you go elsewhere? Do you have outreach? Tell us a little bit about that.
We do field trips. So we do have almost a little less than half of the bookings came through our doors and visited the actual museum. Mm-hmm. We do a lot of outreach too, where we do a lot of traveling to the schools. So this year we actually branched out beyond Hampton Road. So another big step for us. We went towards Northern Virginia with Clark County and also Manassas. We did some math programs with them, and we invited a lot of the administrators to check out our programming when we were there. So
now, for those who may not understand, what exactly does the education department do? How does that tie in with sports? I would assume most people would assume that this is Sports Hall of Fame, so it's all sports related.
Yes, yes, it is sports. We actually use sports as a tool. We tie it in with the math that the students are learning. So from kindergarten all the way through high school, we use math as a teaching tool. So they are actually applying math skills to a real life situation like basketball or some sort of sports thing where they're up and moving and using those skills in a fun, exciting way, like sports. So.
Okay, and when these other places in Northern Virginia, are they reaching out to you, or are you reaching out to them?
We actually met with their foundation directors, and we've met through our board there, but when it came to bringing the program out, they've reached out to us because they thought we had great programming. They saw what we did with the other schools down here, and they actually asked us to come on up there. That's so great. It's pretty cool. So.
But now the summer's here. What types of programs do we have going on education-wise?
We are continuing with math and kind of extending into science and STEM and sports. We're teaming up with a couple of summer camps in the area. We have the Kroc Center and also Paul DeCamp Kids College in Franklin and Suffolk. We're doing a STEM and sports camp a week, 4-day and a 5-day sports camp where we will cover each part of STEM and relate it to sports and get the kids up moving and active with math and STEM. So.
Okay, now people were interested in that. Would they call to camp in these areas?
Yeah, they could contact either Paul DeCamp, Kids College if they're interested in that, or the Kroc Center also over in Norfolk. Or if you want more information, they can certainly call us, myself, here at the Hall of Fame, and I can hook them up with who they need to speak with.
Okay. So. Do you have anything happening on site this summer? On
site, yes. We have this third time we're doing a family night at the museum. Okay, so this year, surprise, surprise, it is sports themed. So we are going to do, we all have a guest speaker speaker in here. We will have family activities throughout the museum, competitions, prizes, giveaways, all the nine. That is August 1st. It's going to be from 6 to 9 o'clock, so it's going to be fun, lots of fun. So
more information, just call here.
Yeah, we will. More information should be out there, so you can check our Facebook for a quick way of getting it. Our website has lots of that information on it. So yeah, they can call too, and we can give it to them too.
Okay. And summer hours, so have they changed from winter hours?
They have. Actually, we're open more. We are open from, Monday through Saturday, 10 to 5, okay? And then on Sundays, we're open in a little bit later into the afternoon, about 2 or 3. So, okay?
Well, thanks for joining us, and good luck with everything.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
For more information on the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame, call 757-393-8031 or log on to www.vshfm.com. During the summer months, one can find musical concerts being offered all over Hampton Roads. In keeping with its tradition of summer music, the Jewish Museum and Cultural Center, located at 607 Effingham Street in Old Town, offers a wonderful Wednesday summer music series. On Wednesday, July 4th, the Virginia Chorale will perform a patriotic chorale at the museum at 7:30 p.m. The Tidewater Guitar Quartet presents a concert at 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, July 15th. On Wednesday evening, August 12th, A Summer Romance will be presented by the Anders Aguirre Trio at 7:30 p.m. Admission to each of these concerts is only $20. For more information, call the Jewish Museum and Cultural Center at 757-391-9266. In the centuries spanning the years 1820 through 1924, a steady flow of Jews made their way to America. Impelled by the economic hardships, persecutions, and great social upheavals of the 19th century, millions of Jews left their towns and villages and embarked on the journey to America. Currently, the Jewish Museum and Cultural Center is creating a new state-of-the-art educational exhibit focused on those Jews who settled locally in Portsmouth, Norfolk, and Berkeley. The museum is currently seeking and collecting information, documents, stories, and pictures to preserve as part of that exhibit. The museum is inviting anyone whose family was part of that historic migration to Hampton Roads to take part in the creation of this exhibit by sharing their stories, photos, and papers. For more information, call the Jewish Museum and Cultural Center at 757-391-9266. Families looking for a fun-filled day trip this summer can do no better than visit the Children's Museum of Virginia in Old Town Portsmouth. The museum has 2 giant floors filled with permanent interactive displays, as well as a series of special temporary traveling displays that guarantee to make every visit to the museum a brand new adventure. Let's see what the museum has in store this July and August. I'm at the Children's Museum of Virginia, and I'm joined by Tim Michalski, who is the exhibit supervisor for the City of Portsmouth Museums. Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Good to see you again.
So we're here in the traveling exhibit room. You bring in lots of different exhibits throughout the year, and you have a new one here for the summer. What is that?
We are currently hosting Young Architects Designing the Future, which is a traveling exhibit brought to us by the Children's Museum of Cleveland. Just to tell you a little bit about the exhibit, the idea behind it is to get children involved in the world of architecture. Now, how do we do that? They can come in, and there's different types of blocks and building materials that they can get their hands on, and there's a station where they can sit down and they can draw their own designs and then display them. They're going to learn about architecture in everyday life. Architecture where maybe they go to school. Where do they go to school? Where do their parents work at? What kind of type of building is that? Where do they live? What kind of house do they live in? Do they live in an apartment, a bungalow, a mansion? And then where do they play? So if you go out into your everyday world and you're going to a sports stadium, or you can go to a theater, or even come to a museum, what type of architecture are you going to see around Hampton Roads?
Okay, I noticed there's lots of stations around here, and one of them I see over here, it's like a huge map of a town. It's a carpet on the floor, but there are buildings and things. So what's the purpose of that?
We have a toddler section. So this exhibit encompasses pretty much all ages, but yes, we have like you described, basically a small town on the floor that's a carpet where there's different structures that smaller kids can pick up, manipulate, move around, drive little cars around on the road, and
design their own
little city. Yeah.
Okay. And I know we were talking before we started the cameras rolling. There's lots of things in here that can be played with and built with and all. So we'll have a big cleanup at the end of the day, probably.
That is a problem. So if you do come to the exhibit this summer, people, please clean up after yourselves. But yes, we have just the nature of the exhibit, because it is a hands-on, we want the kids to come in and play.
Yeah.
So yes, there are lots of blocks where they can design their own structures. Giant waffle blocks, they can make a pyramid. If you see in the background, we have giant Legos where they can build their own cityscapes.
I mean, they can really build some pretty big things here.
Now, the idea is don't build it any higher than yourself, Rob, but we understand if it gets out of control. How would you work, live, and play in something that's so higher than yourself? And now, there's also some stations here where they learn about different architects. Yeah, throughout the exhibit, not only are they introduced to buildings and structures, but there's also certain architects themselves are described.
Frank Lloyd Wright.
There's a thing on Jefferson. So yeah, as they go around and read, the idea is to get the parents and the children involved in reading the text and being inspired by what other architects were inspired by.
Okay, great. Like I said before, this is just one of the many exhibits you have coming in here throughout the year. It's only here for a short amount of time, or a few months. So when does this leave?
Our last day will be September 1st. So we're here for the summer. We end September, and then we'll go into other things after that point.
So, and this is just part of your admission to the Children's Museum of Virginia. Whenever you come in, this is all part of the...
Right, it's all part of admission.
Nothing extra?
Nothing extra. It's included with admission. And, these traveling exhibits are a great way to keep the museum fresh. People come in, members, whoever, maybe they only come once or twice a year, but hopefully there's something different in this room where they can come and do new things that they haven't done in the museum.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us today, taking time out of your schedule to tell us all about it.
No problem, Rob. Appreciate it always.
Thank you. So come to the Children's Museum of Virginia and see the traveling exhibit, Young Architects. It's on display until the 1st of September. The Education Department of the Children's Museum of Virginia offers day camps every summer. This July, a special history-based day camp will be offered. Let's find out more about it. I'm joined by Marcelina Reyna, who is an educator at the museums here in Portsmouth.
Yes,
welcome.
Sir.
Good to have you here. I understand you're new. You've only been here for a short time.
Yes, yeah. I've been there for a month now.
Okay, but you have something coming up in the month of July that you're helping with. And tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, it's our World War II summer camp, and we call it To Victory. And it'll be July 13th through the 17th, 9 to 12, and it's for 9 to 12-year-olds.
So what types of things will they be doing in a World War II camp?
Oh, it's going to be great. It's really about taking a child and putting them in the shoes of a civilian and an American soldier. So the children will be able to mix and eat their own mock apple pies. They'll get to enlist in the U.S. Army and perform drills, experience Nerf warfare, and they'll even have the opportunity. Nerf warfare. That's right. Yeah, we have some Nerf guns set up for the kiddos. And they'll even have the opportunity to write V-mail to, that's letters, to real American soldiers abroad.
Okay, so in doing this, they learn about day-to-day life, I guess, during World War II.
Absolutely. They'll learn how whole communities came together and united under a single cause. And that's really what it's all about, is teaching them that when an entire community stands under a single cause, the great positive impact that they can make in their community. And during World War II, that lifestyle was so much different from what we experience today. And everybody made a contribution, from recycling to the Navajo Wind Talkers to leaving your country to fight abroad for a great cause. It was really a different time.
So people want to sign their kids up for this. Do they call the museum? Do they go online? What do they do?
They can go online, childrensmuseumva.org, and there they can click under activities and look at our summer camps, and there they can download a registration form, fill that out, and either bring it in person to the Children's Museum in Portsmouth, or they can call the Education Department by calling the museum, and they can connect you with somebody who can sign up your children.
All right, now what are the dates in the camp again?
It is July 13th through 17th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m.
All right, thanks for joining us, Marcy, and telling us all about it.
Thank you.
For more information on any day camps being offered by the Children's Museum of Virginia, call 757-393-8983. And to find out more information on the exhibits and events offered by any of the museums in Portsmouth, simply log on to www.portsvaevents.com. You'll find events listed by their dates, as well as links to the websites of each museum. I'm Rob Lauer. Thanks for joining me for today's show, and be sure to join me next time for the September-October episode of Museum Moments.